Well, hello there. Welcome to Del Beccaro and Hook Enlightened Dissent. Remember, you can find us on YouTube and, of course, Rumble or wherever you're watching us now. Don't forget our Patriot page, by the way, patriot.tv/DHED. DHED there at the end of Patriot, and then follow us on our homepage there. Tom, hello, man. Well, it's the big final show of 2024. What a year it was. This is kind of our year in review and are looking forward to the next year. We decided early that we were going to pick the winners and losers here. And Tom, I'll just give you my first loser of the year. The first loser of the year beyond Kamala Harris is probably the media. The media took it in the neck with their credibility, and with that, so too did the DNC. It just was a horrible year for that little cabal, and we'll see how that plays out in 2025. But there's my first loser. What have you got, Tom? Hey, buddy.
Well, it's good to see everyone. I hope you had a Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah and Happy New Year to everyone. We're just on the cusp of that. No doubt. If you're going to put together a list, obviously our big winner is Donald Trump and the Republicans, because they have now the House, the Senate, and the White House. And certainly you had Kamala Harris and the Democrats are big losers. But I agree with you. The media took an enormous hit here because on a variety of levels, right? They tried to sell Americans on their social justice, and Americans voted on the economy, right? That's number one. Number two, they were lying about Joe Biden and the whole time. And then the reports came out last week about how, in fact, bad it was with respect to Joe Biden. So you have people like Joe Scarborough, famously, I think it was in May, I want to say, where he says, listen here, this is the best version of Joe Biden ever, kind of thing, right? And all of that came tumbling down, and we saw that their ratings dropped by huge percentages, right? Pretty soon we're going to outdo MSNBC. I'm certain about that. But no. So the reality is, look, at the end of the day, they're a business. And credibility to branding, we're going to talk about branding with Dr. John Tantillo in the next segment. You got to have credibility with that. And they were lying to them. And when you have people like Charlemagne, the radio host, not the immense figure of the 700s.
Leave it to you.
And you have Stephen A. Smith talking about how the Democrats lied to people and the media lied to people. That's a big loss. And that's one of the reasons why Trump won. But who's a big winner for you other than Donald Trump and the Republicans?
Well, beyond Trump, I would say pretty much, this is a thing. Trump had such a huge year. And we talked about this last week, Tom, how maybe him losing in 2020 may have been, as it turns out, one of the, you're talking about, looking for the silver lining. The silver lining may have been that his credibility, and it coincided with the media and the Democrats' lack of credibility or loss of credibility. Trump's credibility went through the roof. So my second big winner would be anyone that really attached to that wagon. And number one, right out of the gate, Elon Musk. Tesla's stock went through the roof. SpaceX is doing wonderful. Starlink is doing wonderful. His companies that people don't really even talk about, or the Boring Company, is doing wonderful. So I think Musk was a big winner. And you know what? I'll throw in another a group if I could. And I hate to do these blocks of people, but for this sake, we will. Black America. Black America won. The blinders have fallen off, especially young black males. The blinders have fallen off. They have seen it with the help of people like Charlemagne and Stephen H. Smith, as you mentioned. And they woke up not only to the fact that Trump was a plain speaker, but you can only BS people for so long. Once they realize they've been BS'd, then anything you say after that is lost on them. So those are my two big winners. Black America, let's just say this, people of POC, people of color, were big winners, and Elon Musk was a huge winner.
Yeah, if I think of the end of the year and what it's going to be like going into next year, there's a paradigm shift in what government is going to be doing next year. And Doja, that's the Italian version of Doge, is now the topic. And there was a big victory for them last week. Initially, the 1,500-page bill, which was a bunch of largesse that Mitch McConnell wrote, that was what they were going off of. They wound down to 100-and-something-page version, spending a lot less. And even though after the first vote, the Democrats talked about President Musk and doesn't know what he's doing, Keith Olbermann, who ridiculously has blocked me on Twitter. I think that's hysterical.
That's a badge of honor, buddy.
I think it's hysterical that he did that. Anyway, the point is that they came out a big winner in that fight, right? Because the bill did go down. And, Doja equals sunlight equals political disinfectant equals less spending equals less inflation. And if they're going to continue to do this, then the Democrat game is up. Because if everything the Democrats put up, all of the waste, all of the special interest spending, if every time a bill comes up and they fine-tooth comb it and then tell the world, why are we spending $100 million on frog research in Romania, then this is going to be super successful. And it must be, because you can't run $2 trillion deficits. So Here we go. I think Musk and Doge put together is a huge, huge winner in 2024.
Yeah, I agree. And not only is it a huge winner, it has the potential to be a legacy and a long-lasting winner, because if they do this, and that's the big if. We were talking a week or so ago, Tom, about how they were calling Musk president. I think that when you listen to them and you really kind of break down what they're saying, that's fear talking on their side. They are fearful that if Doge really takes off, and it should, because people want to hear the truth. And if Vivek and Elon say, hey, look, we spent over $1 million studying codfish, in which alcohol makes a codfish more aggressive, gin or tequila. Some people laugh that off and say, okay, well, it's $1 million, it's chump change. But you know what? We've also got shrimp on treadmills. We've also got all kinds of crazy, how long does a quart of milk last sitting on a counter? Let's dump $5 million on that. And so you start adding all these little things together, and it doesn't pan out well. And I think that Vivek and Elon are going to do a good job. So I agree with you. I think Musk and Doge is a huge, huge win for Americans, really.
Yeah, my other big winner is an obvious winner, but it's important to realize, and that is J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance wasn't Trump's original thought process, but I think that with Doge and the tax renewal and the other items, the energy efficiency that Trump's going to bring, I think the economy is going to rebound, and I think that Republicans will keep the House, and that puts J.D. Vance completely in the catbird seat.
Agreed.
And the thing about this is there are a lot of people who want to run in 2028, right? And if J.D. Vance is a VP of a successful presidency, and he's very young, he leapfrogs like. Put it a different way. 2 years ago, if you did a poll, or 3 years ago, of who would be the nominee for Republicans in 2028, Ron DeSantis would be high on that list.
Yeah.
J.D. Vance wouldn't even been on the list. So if you're talking about political success stories or big winners in 2028, J.D. Vance has leapfrogged just about everyone. At least as we sit here today.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that it was, J.D. Vance, as it turns out, was a perfect pick for Trump. One thing I would say about Trump this time around that we didn't see in 2016 or 2020 was it, man, he has really concentrated on what the problems were of that 2020 campaign. Now, he may still talk about how he was cheated, and I have a hard time believing that Joe Biden got 81 million votes, but that's a dead conversation. Going forward, though, I think Trump really did study it, sat down and said, I need to surround myself with people that aren't just DC insiders, but are actually DC outsiders. So DC outsiders had a big win this year. DC insiders, not so much. I would say if we're going to talk about losers, Tom, you know who else is on my list of losers? We already talked about Harris and, of course, the media. But how about Rhino Republicans? They had a horrible year. The Lisa Murkowskis, the Susan Collins, and of course you mentioned Mitch McConnell, the turtle. Horrible year for them as far as that particular brand of republicanism. You've mentioned paradigm shift. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I think the establishment took it on the chin because they were not delivering on efficient government. They too were not responsive to voters, and Trump has made it so. And their last-ditch attempt to have that big spending bill, that was a bad look, and it showed that they too were disconnected from that. Okay, so we're winding down this segment. We're going to go to our predictions for 2025. But of course, another big winner in 2024 was your barber. I mean, he must have got a lot of money. Annie, our producer, don't you agree with me? That guy had gotten pretty darn rich, don't you think?
Yes, and I think I'm still getting used to the new look. You look great, though, Steve.
Oh, well, thank you. If he got paid by the pound, he made a lot of money. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. It's great being on. Anyway, folks, we're going to wind up this segment of Del Beccaro and Wolfman Jack. We appreciate you coming on. We're going to, our next segment will be with Dr. John Tantillo talking about the marketing of the parties and similar items. So please share this on YouTube and Rumble or wherever you're watching, and patriot.tv, and we'll be back in just a minute.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
You know, if I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep. It's showing up more energy, more get up and go. And it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
Welcome back, everybody, to Del Beccaro and Hook's year-end show. We're in for a treat today. Don't forget to share this on YouTube and Rumble and at patriot.tv/DHED, Del Beccaro and Hook's Enlightened Dissent. Welcome's a good friend of mine. And we're going to, again, this is going to be a fun little year-end episode. It is the doctor of marketing, Dr. John Tantillo. He's the marketing professor at Lander College for Men at Touro University, and he's the author of the popular book, People Buy Brands, Not Companies. His column, Marketing and Branding Lens, can be found at Newsmax, where he often appears, and his website is Dr. John Tantillo, Tantillo, like the olive oil, Dr. John Tantillo.com. John, welcome. Folks, John and I have been friends since the Cleveland administration. And what I enjoy about him is we have a similar background. My father was the VP or the head of marketing for one of the biggest companies in the world back in the 70s and the 80s. And so I had a marketing degree by osmosis. And we come at politics much the same way, which is very old school, which is you should have a brand. People should be able to identify. So if you think of Volvo, I ask people when I do my talks about marketing and politics, tell me what you associate with Volvo. And instantly it comes back, safety.
Yeah.
And that's what should happen with political parties as well. So we invited John here today because there's a bit of an upset of the apple cart, if you think about it. Way back in the day, coming out of the Cleveland administration era, that's why I made that representation. The Republicans were associated with big banks and country clubs. That's sort of where that started. And then the Democrats became the working man's party, especially with FDR. But this last election, people said, or a lot of people thought, that the Democrats became the party of the elites and Republicans were the party of the working man. So who better to talk about this in this year-end show than my friend, the marketing professor. John, great to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Well, thank you, Tom. It's wonderful to be here. And I have a few interesting ideas up my sleeve. So let's get, yeah.
Give us let's open it up with, give us your thoughts about on this switch and is there a Democrat brand today?
Oh, yeah. And strange as it may seem, a lot of my friends haven't seen the change, or Trump made the change. He underscored the change. And what is that change? That really the Republican Party, or Trump, is the working man's politician. And what I find really bizarre is that they say that Trump lies. Well, as a businessman, as a marketer, he's a salesman, and he doesn't lie. He exaggerates. But journalists don't see it that way. So Joe Biden could say, I will never pardon my son, and he's not criticized when he changes his mind as lying. But if Trump said, there are 5 million people that attended the event and there's 4.5, he lied. And the real difference there is that the salesperson, which Trump is an exaggerator. He's a salesperson, while politicians are more careful at the words that they use for fear that they will be pointed at as, you said this. And that basically is the main difference between Trump and other politicians. The reason why most people don't like Trump is because he says the obvious. He doesn't filter. And people are so used to politicians picking their words oh so gingerly that there you have it. That really is the problem. And I also understand the Queens thing. I'm from Queens, and you'll get a kick out of this story. My dear friend Joe Santoro said used to defend Trump by saying he's from Queens. I have a friend from Queens, John Tantillo. He's like that all the time. It's just part of being a New Yorker, but not a New York politician. New York politicians were very careful not to be too, as we used to say in television, hot. You don't want to be hot. You want to be cool. And there you go.
John,
yeah,
welcome to the show. Go ahead, Tom. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
I had a friend who used to say about Trump's mean tweets, you hired a contractor from Queens. What did you expect when you did that? But John, you recently wrote an article about the Democrats and their branding. Why don't you, that's at Newsmax. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, yeah. Well, I feel that the Democrats have lost their way and they have become the party of the elites. And I have a cousin who used to work for the government. He has a PhD in economics from Berkeley. He's a year younger than I am. And my sister and her husband, who are both academics, are committed Democrats because they don't see the difference in the part. Their automatic response is to vote Democratic without actually listening to what they said. Now, what I did is I changed my party affiliation. I thought I would never do this. I became a Republican because I just couldn't take the tactics that were being used. And the Democrats, to be quite honest about it, were wrong in terms of assessing how America's voters feel about issues. Were all wrong. I mean, people just can't relate. Most average people can't relate to left ideology. They just can't. If you're right out of college, maybe. If you're a graduate student, maybe. But this woke stuff just can't be tolerated. Like if you say that America is racist, and you just had Obama elected president twice, not once. You have more black politicians than you ever had. You have more black and Hispanic physicians. You have more, I believe now, or if I may be wrong, female physicians are there's just as many as there are male physicians. It just doesn't calibrate when Democrats say you're racist. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It just doesn't, and so that really is the problem. And another thing that is different, and why I believe Trump did win, and Tom and I used to talk about this all the time, and Republicans received God or listened to God when they did what I call political intelligence. I define what political intelligence is, and in a Newsmax piece. And what it is, it's the ability to pull your voters out or get them to vote, along with having a army of lawyers to challenge all of the election loss cases that before the election. They used to do it after the election. And if you know anything about judges, Republican or Democrat, there is going to be no judge that's going to switch votes. They won't do it. They won't do it. Wow. And so what the Republicans did is they did those two things. As a matter of fact, this guy Scott Pressler, who really was very successful in, of all places, Pennsylvania, and they're talking about defeating the governor there. If this model is used throughout the red states, the Democrats are gonna have a big problem because they're on the wrong side of the issues. And what are the issues? The issues is the trans issue. There is going to be no working class person that's going to understand how a man can play women's sports. It's just now. You can feel sorry. You can have empathy for that group, but and my reaction to that is let trans people play men's sports and have fines or reprimands if anybody criticizes or makes fun of them. But let them play the sport that God has in fact given them. That doesn't mean in any other situation they shouldn't be respected and a lot of yada, yada, yada. But they have to understand. And this is something that marketing has taught me. It's not about us as marketers. It's all about the customer, or in this case, the voter. You can't get people to vote for something that is alien to them or they don't feel comfortable with. Like this idea of mass transit, long distance mass transit, the railroads. First of all, the railroads are a 19th century technology. No one is going to take a train from New York to Chicago. I mean, yeah, in the old days you would do, or even worse, New York to LA by train, which takes 5 days. I mean, yeah, who's going to do that? But the Democrats, you can't tell them. They just spent money on a high-speed rail from I think Los Angeles to Las Vegas. I don't think it's good. I think I will be very surprised whether or not it's going to be used, because Americans don't have that mindset of using trains. And even Europe, when my German friends want to go to the Alps, they're going to using their cars. They're using the Autobahn. No one in Europe is using trains. The only people that use trains are tourists that get the Europass that can go all around the place. But and constantly the Democrats feel that it's the right thing to do rails, or to in fact not waste energy. You can't. The genie is out of the bottle. Okay, yeah. We love our air conditioning. There is no way we are going to become Europe and not have air conditioning. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, so, they push these issues down people's throat.
Exactly.
And preach to them. Steve, go ahead.
Hey, John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve.
You know, I kind of picking up right where you left off. The trains is a perfect example of this. I think that. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think you'd probably agree. First of all, I think Trump is probably the biggest brand ever in politics.
Oh, absolutely.
I cast my memory back to the days of Gerald Ford, and remember when whip inflation now. He was really trying to brand that as something. It ended up going over like a lead balloon. It didn't work, and the branding was off. Trump has branded MAGA. It's unbelievable. Meantime, you've got Democrats and their liberal progressive acolytes in the media and in the academia. They seem to be living in a bubble, and the only people that they associate with think exactly like them, and then they're shocked. It's like a scene out of Casablanca when things don't fall their way, because everybody they know votes exactly the way they do or thinks exactly the way they do. So if we're talking about winners and losers in 2024, I think at the very top of the list, you'd probably have to put network news, mainstream media, lost.
That's on the list.
That's the babysitter of the Democrat messaging machine. And once it's derailed, speaking of trains,
right,
everything gets derailed. So what do you think about that? Trump is really a marketing genius, no?
Yes. And the reason that he lost in 220 is he was a marketing genius, but they did very poorly at political intelligence. They underestimated, and you listen to the media, polling only accounts for 2% of the vote. It's meaningless. And in politics, what you can't do is underestimate the voter. And what you've got to do is get your vote out. Now, the way I learned that from my political mentor, who used polling and won and caused upsets by doing a polling operation. And I'll explain to you how we used to do it in the old days. You would first assess how many votes you needed to win the primary. And this is where it was in Queens politics. And let's say it was 5,000. Okay. What you would then do is delineate based on the district the number of Catholics you were going to get, the number of Jewish people you were going to get, the number of blacks you would get, and you would delineate that. You would then get a list, okay, a voter list, what they call a primary voter list. And you would call these different demographics, because it was broken down that way, and say, my name is John Tantillo, and I'm doing a poll for ABC. Are you going to vote for Tom Del Beccaro? And they'll say yes. Well, you would take Del Beccaro's card or take his name and put a Y for yes. What that meant was that on primary day, you would call up Tom Del Beccaro and say, I'm John Tantillo from the Better Business Bureau or the Better Voters Bureau, and we want to make sure you voted. Did you vote today, Mr. Del Beccaro? And you would say, no. Well, do you need any help getting there? Okay, yes. And so we would get a car and make sure that Del Beccaro got to the poll and voted. And you did that 5,000 times. That took a lot of effort, but that's what polling, now they do this differently now with social media. You get the email, but that's the way we did it in the old days. You first identified who it was that were going to vote for you, and if they and then get them to the polls. And that's what the Republicans did this year, and that's why they won. And by the way, then we had election law lawyers as well, and we were up against the biggest machine, Donald Maness, who committed suicide because they were going to put him in jail for all the corruption that was done. So we were up against those guys, and we used to run against what they called regular Democrats. We were insurgents, and they couldn't understand why we were winning. Well, we had a very definite methodology, and that was there's more nuances, all right. And we used to work with the unions, okay, DC, DC 27, utility, not the utility, the municipal workers, the city workers. So we had a fellow there by the name of Norman Adler, who was brilliant, a brilliant tactician that knew all of those ways of pulling. But that went away. Now, to be fair, our good friend AOC, that's how she beat the county leader named Crowley, who we ran against. Okay, she beat him because, and he was also the congressperson, because there were so little voters. They did the primary in June. He was such a Weisenheimer, Crowley. Well, let's do it in June where we don't have as many people voting. Well, she was smart. She polled the people and won with like less than 5,000 votes.
Yeah. So, John, we got just a couple minutes to go. Who's your, other than Trump, who's your a big winner that you liked in 2024?
Well, I would have to say Tesla, also Amazon. I mean, think about that. Netflix. Netflix is the biggest entertainment content creator in the world now. Okay, and everybody will poo-poo it. You think of Warner Brothers or you think of the major studios. No, it's Netflix. All right, and I tell interested artists, young artists, that. All right, and it's the internet. And here's something out of left field. Beyond Meat, the vegan substitute that has been very creative in its distribution. So that is a lookout for them. And hey, you got Elon Musk and Tesla.
SpaceX.
Yeah. Well, just whatever he touches turns to gold. He really is. He's a very, very interesting man. And young people love him. Young people, they just adore him.
Which is why this could be realigning. His success could be realigning.
Absolutely. I have to, yeah. And the Democrats don't get it. See, the activists don't understand this. They think that it's their ideas alone. I got news for you. Socialism doesn't work. Why are everybody wanting to come to the United States? It's a 19th century philosophy. Actually, it has its time in Socrates and Aristotle. It just doesn't work. I mean,
no doubt. Okay, John, we got to wrap up this segment. We appreciate you coming. Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Do you think the Musk, real quick, the Musk-Trump team,
yes,
brand, do you think that becomes so popular that that can elect a Republican again in 2028 and keep the Congress?
I do, just as long as, and this is my background, I'm a psychologist by training, as long as the egos don't get. And I look at Trump as an older person who's not threatened by, there is that, when a man gets older, okay, he thinks of his legacy. And I think he sees Musk and his family as the legacy. He really enjoys being around Musk. So I predict that this is good for 12 years, at least 12 years.
All right. Dr.
Okay.
John Tantillo, thanks so much for joining us today on Del Beccaro and Hook. Everybody, please check out again us on YouTube and Rumble and Patriot.tv. Please share this with your friends. And we'll be right back with our predictions for 2024.
The Donor Deck represents a groundbreaking independent crowdfunding initiative driven by patriots like you to bring back our esteemed President Donald J. Trump to office. With unwavering passion, we pledge all profits from the sale to MAGA Inc. and Fight Like a Flynn PAC. The exquisitely detailed challenge coin is a timeless collectible to be passed down to generations. It symbolizes your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. Get your Donor Deck now. Go to the Patriot.tv store and click on Donor Deck. Enjoy the magnificent artwork and scripture on each playing card, knowing our appreciation for your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. You'll get this keepsake collectible challenge coin acknowledging your support for Donald Trump's run back to the White House, and the Donor Deck of 52 exquisite playing cards, plus a beautiful display case to show your challenge coin. Go to the Patriot.tv store and get your Donor Deck now.
Okay, we're back with Del Beccaro and Hook, and boy, old John Tantillo, what a great guest he was. He likes to talk, and it was enlightening and fun. I can see why you like that guy, Tom. Really a sharp fella. It's been a very fun show. We've been talking about winners and losers of 2024, and now it's time, Tom, this is where we kind of put our integrity on the line here and make predictions about 2025, because I suspect in about a year, we're going to look back on this list and say, well, we got this right, we got that wrong. Let's start with you. What is your big prediction in 2025? What do we have to look forward to in the new year?
Well, I'm going to pick up where my big winner in 2024. Domestically, what we're going to find is this Doge and this exposure of government is going to become a sensation, right? There'll be nowhere to hide for business as usual for American politicians. And unfortunately, that has included a lot of Republicans over the years, and certainly Democrats. This idea that they're going to put forward these bills that they don't read. And I said 20-something years ago that if Americans ever saw what they were getting out of government, they would stop voting for government. And I said all the time that what Republicans need to do is expose that. Well, what we've learned, of course, is that there are many Republicans that were okay with that. And that's what that bill at the end of the year demonstrated. So I think one of the big winners of next year will be this sensation of reducing spending, because Doge is going to bring sunlight, the best disinfectant, to the political process. And thank God that that Musk bought Twitter and exposed so much. And now the use of Twitter and Musk and Ramaswamy to expose government, I think, will be the big dynamic next year. They're only getting started.
Yeah, and they really even haven't started. I mean, they're going to start in about 20 days and not even. And it's going to be interesting to see that play out. I you know what? I didn't even think of putting it the way you just did, Tom, but you're right. Once they expose we're not talking about millions here, hundreds of thousands. We're talking about billions and billions of dollars just frittered away by this government to feather their own nest, to feather the nest of their constituents and their special interest groups. Yeah, a lot of that is going to go away, I think. And so I think that's a pretty safe prediction. It's going to be interesting to see how the media covers it, though. We saw what the media did a couple of weeks ago with Elon Musk is the president
but that's going to, people will see this as victories. The media is going to try this billionaire shadow presidency, but people aren't going to care. They're going to care about the fact that the DC establishment is being run into the ground. Our producer, who, by the way, we got to thank her for helping us so much on this on this show, Annie. We wouldn't be here without you. We wouldn't be on Patriot TV. So much you've done for us. But we've been friends. How long, Annie?
Over 8 years.
That's a long time for you to put up with me. I agree. But she's originally from Iran, and she's has a brilliant mind of her own. So maybe you could give us your prediction before Steve winds us up. What's your and I use wind up advisedly. Annie, you have a prediction that I think is pretty telling. So why don't you have at it?
Sure, but before I go, since you gave me the microphone, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Steve, for trusting me with your program. And one of the predictions that I wish and I pray for is a very successful Beccaro and Hook show in 2025.
Nice.
And I encourage all the audience, get behind these two guys. They're doing the right thing, and they've been doing it for a long time. Beccaro and Hook on YouTube, Beccaro and Hook on Rumble. You can go to patriot.tv/DHED.
See, she did it too, not just me.
Right? We always do that. Support their affiliates and the sponsors so they can continue doing the show. Now, with the prediction, I strongly believe we will see a huge uprising in Middle East, starting from Iran, when the mullah is going to have to hide and they won't have a place in Middle East. They can't go to Syria, they can't go to Afghanistan, they can't go to Pakistan. They're going to have to try to flee to Europe or, God forbid, to America. But there will be a disaster going on in Middle East, and I strongly believe President Trump knows exactly how to handle it. So we won't be affected here, but Middle East is going to be reshaped very soon in 2025. With that, I ask everybody to pray for Middle Eastern people, because they're going to have to do the hard thing. They're going to have to reshape their own mindset, and then with that, free themselves from any of these terrorist groups that are controlling them.
Yeah.
Annie, this prediction, and we talked about it last week a bit as well with Blaine Holt, Brigadier General Blaine Holt. If Iran comes down, Iran is the most dangerous, in my view, the most dangerous country on earth, because it's so ideological and so bent on, the largest state sponsor of terror. And if that occurs, and that temperature can be dialed down, meaning Iran is not causing all of these problems like Hamas and Hezbollah, that could change world history. And, it gets to the point, Steve, I don't know where you are on this, but sometimes you see these kind of things and you think to yourself, I don't see how this ever ends. But if it does, in this case, because of the things Annie's talking about, what a change that would be.
Oh my gosh, it'd be cataclysmic for the mullahs and the radical, terrorists, and it would be wonderful for the rest of the world, which is the vast majority of the world. We just looked a week or so ago. We had the incident in Germany where and it was a Saudi national, by the way, who drove a truck through that Christmas marketplace and killed several people, and fortunately they got him. I was watching about this, and Annie, maybe you can weigh in a little bit on this, because I think that it kind of goes to your point. I think a lot of people, including folks in Saudi Arabia, by the way, I saw it, I don't know what sheikh it was, but it was a Saudi Arabia sheikh. And he said, look, we told Germany about this guy. He was under indictment here, and we just wanted him transferred back to Saudi Arabia. And Germany gave him asylum and refused to transfer him back. And this is what happens. So I think that should this change happen and I also say that had Trump won in 2020, we wouldn't even be talking about this right now. But we've got another shot at another bite at the apple with this next administration, because Trump will back the freedom fighters in Iran, the Green Movement. He will back that. And I think as that domino falls, a whole bunch of them will. And it looks like a lot of folks in the Middle East are getting very sick of Hamas and Houthis and Hezbollah and all the rest of them, Boko Haram. You can go right down the list. Annie, do you think that if Iran does fall, the mullahs fall, not the people of Iran are pretty much pro-Western. You never know it, listen to the media, but they are. Should the mullahs fall, won't this have a cascade effect throughout the entire Middle East?
Oh, absolutely. And let me quickly go back to what you just said, Steve, the Saudi man in Germany. You know, our media has covered it up, and most of our administrations have cooperated to where we think Saudi Arabia is our friend. But let's not forget the hijackers were from Saudi Arabia too. You know, they have covered that up to where we think Saudis are good people. Their leadership is our ally. That's not real. That's fake. We have had plenty. Honestly, you name it. We have had from any country in Middle East, Islamic countries. We had terrorists coming to any country, killing innocent people, including a toddler in that Christmas market that was killed. That media won't cover because then they're going to look bad. Anyhow, but yes, you're correct. Right now, good news is Houthis are gone. As of right now, Houthis are completely gone because they don't have the funding, they don't have the backing, so they're no danger at the moment. Now, you take the mullahs out of the formula, there will be zero except one. The regime that just took over Syria, they're not funded by Iran, so they can stay in power. But the rest of them are going to disappear pretty quickly, because if mullahs aren't there to give them money, there's no way they can continue doing what they're doing. As far as the Syria, I'm pretty sure President Trump has a plan for them.
Yeah, so it is true that the Middle Eastern, we have a base in Qatar, yet Hamas's leadership hangs out in Qatar, right? And given, and there are not everybody in Saudi Arabia is an enemy of the United States, but that's a complicated story, isn't it? It isn't just that they're entirely good or bad. They play both sides of the fence. On the other hand, we need to look, I've been against us sending petrodollars to the Middle East for decades upon decades. We enriched them. We reduced employment here. We raised our defense costs here. Big mistake. But if the big domino of Iran falls, I think what we can find is that through the Abraham Accords Part 2, that the negative elements will be reduced to a significant degree. We only got a couple of minutes left, Steve. We didn't get your big prediction for 2025.
Well, I predict the economy is going to take off like a rocket ship. I'm not talking about Wall Street. To be fair, Wall Street's been doing pretty good. Wall Street has weathered the storm. I think Main Street, though, is going to take off. I think you're going to see a rebirth of entrepreneurship in this country. I think young people are going to get more involved than they have in the past. It's one good thing I'll say about social media is it has tapped a lot of young people into what's going on. They may only have the attention span of a goldfish, but you know what? Those TikTok and reels that you find on Facebook, those only take 30 seconds. And I think it had a big impact on this recent election. So I think that trend is going to continue. I think entrepreneurship and basically Main Street USA is going to come roaring back in 2025.
And if we pick up on John Tantillo's comment about how the young people like Musk, how enormous that would be if he educates a new generation like their textbooks are not
Hear, hear.
If he turns them to, a bright flame of freedom and getting away from censorship and the like, that's a long way to go, because
we'll compare notes in a year. We'll look at this show and we'll say, you know what, we got it right or we got it wrong. I think we're going to get it right, though. That's my take.
No, I mean, it's a long way to go to get these kids to understand, because they have been indoctrinated for years, as Trevor Loudon talked about last week and the like. So, all right, it's time to wrap it up. I'm not coming back ever again this year on this show. I've had enough.
Well, Happy New Year
Steve
to
will
everyone.
put his wig back on next year so we can feel at home.
It does grow like
Andy,
a weed.
Thanks so much again for helping us out, and we'll see you at the start of the year and just hit the ground running, and by the time our show comes on, who knows what the news will be, but we'll be there to speak with you about it. Thanks so much for joining us in 2024, and we look forward to a great 2025. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Goodbye.